I'm Lucy Cordes Engelman. I say that I'm an artist filmmaker and also a writer, but I don't really see the clear distinctions often between what I make, whether it's visual art, film, or writing. It all kind of blends together for me.
She told us an image is a presence, a life.
Mighty half-well seaside against which again a century's flooded the called water to pumps drains from horses.
What I want to make is a kind of story that is shared in multiple forms, whether that's visual and imagery based, vocal, orality, soundscape, or just story, narrative. But worlds that are doing the work of unworlding, that are actually not building worlds, but unbuilding, undoing, unknowing realms where you can enter it, and it's not about knowing everything, and it's not about understanding everything, and it's not about controlling everything. The mystery is somehow, for me, just a very juicy position to be in as a maker, is kind of always searching and being at peace with you'll never find. You'll never completely reach the end.
Water is a teacher. Water and following water's movements, following water's rhythms, the places water takes me both literally and imaginatively, has led to a different sort of academic practice. Water informs how I write, how I research, how I think, how I collaborate with other beings. I mean, water is the most collaborative substance I can imagine. It draws things into it. It collects different kinds of beings and it brings them together in this amazing conversation. And I think it's asked me to try to emulate that in the kind of work that I do.
Personally, I've always self-identified as a feminist since I can remember. It seemed like a no-brainer. But it's only been, over a long period of research and understanding the legacies of feminism and coming to understand it as a kind of much more about social justice as opposed to women specifically and in a kind of essentialist way, but much more about a environmentally, racially, class, gender, equity, and equality across the board, and a kind of way of existing rather than women being in power as opposed to men. And that's really fundamental to how I understand my feminism. And when I came across the text of Astrida's Hydrofeminism, which a friend introduced me to, I was really struck by how she articulated so many things that I was already thinking and feeling about an approach to being in the world that it could counter the dominance of patriarchy, the dominance of racial capitalism, the dominance of all of these contained, separated, and abstracted structures and infrastructure that we have to exist under, and how water, and thinking about like the levees or all of the concrete buildings and bridges and everything, and how the water literally can erode and seep under and wash away, boulders. When I had a greater understanding of the colonial oppressive history of the world and the exploitation, I really then came to understand this greater project of feminism as having to shift everything. We have to change everything. And that means how we approach each other and how we approach our lives and how we approach care and caring and what that means. I see feminism as all genders, all bodies, all humans, all beings, and as a very joyful thing, as something that's liberating and, and positive and loving, actually like extremely loving. I had noticed, of course, how the relationship here with the sea was so dominant in terms of fighting off the ocean, winning the war, this us versus it. And my question was, when did that relationship dynamic begin in the Netherlands? And is there a prior relationship that the people who lived here had to the sea? And if so, what was that? And what was that like? And because in my hope or my imagination, there was a vast, rich history of folklore and perhaps more mystical kind of exchange with the sea, rather than that patriarchal kind of war. So I researched for about, I think maybe 6 months. I was trying to find anything I could. I went to various museums and talked with archaeologists, and I finally did come across this Rhineland goddess, Nehelenia, which some people are familiar with and some people aren't, funny enough. So that was really interesting. Oh, here's this goddess who was from 200 AD, and that was a Roman time here, but it's likely that she was from way prior to that, more Neolithic era, and that the Romans co-opted her and kind of utilized her for their purposes, but there were temples devoted to her, stone altars. She's presented seated, often with a dog at her side and a basket of fruit or grain. And there's many different theories about her. Then she was either an ocean goddess, a mother goddess, just a ship-faring goddess. It's kind of like what I saw was there's a varying of interpretations of her importance based on preconceived notions of what a woman could possibly be. I did a bit of a pilgrimage to where the temples were discovered and to see what I could find. And to be honest, there wasn't much. There's some street names, there's a hostel with her name on it, or Hotel Nehelenia. There's a bench where there's a modern stone incarnation of her looking out of the sea. There's some remnants of the temples and the altars. But I spent the night in the hotel, and I had left the door open on my balcony, and I was lying in bed reading, and it was probably almost midnight. I was about to go to sleep, and all of a sudden the door went way wide and then slammed shut with the wind, and I just had this feeling, and I was just like, oh, like, okay, like I feel this power, I feel this energy. And I think that is kind of what I'm seeking when I make work or when I'm researching, is to really feel the energy, not just to know the details or know the things or share the things, but to have an encounter that feels like there's something beyond myself that I'm communing with.
Sand retracing itself back into rock, the water licking and swirling, caressing what lies buried 1,000 years. But for a haunting, eerie cry, lightning and fire, burning, pronouncing the absence of something, a mystery still, that has washed away a lingering past, unknown, unknowable, 2 stone pillars, a threshold, like the imprint of an altar. She rises as the wind. No, she is the wind. Nehelania is she alive. Is the wind. Mother. Nehelania the water is alive. Wants us to know. Mother. The water wants us to know.
I think that it's difficult to translate those feelings into work, and it takes time and it takes a level of trust in a slow process. So I work very slowly, and I often make work along the way that helps me kind of get where I want to go, and is yet in my mind never completed and never the whole story. So for instance, I made a 12-minute film, and that's a part of the process of making a larger, longer work, a continuation of the work. And I'm kind of, it's kind of almost like making the film is a meditative process to get to the next film. And I also often speak orally, repetition to myself to kind of invoke or kind of get in a headspace, and whether I end up using that or not, it doesn't matter. It's about that process